Ryan, so excited to talk to you. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Well, thanks for coming on. Let's start by you telling us who you are, what you do, and one fun fact about you.
Yep. So I am the co-founder of Cloud Paper. Cloud Paper is a tree-free paper products company. We started just about 3 years ago here in Seattle, Washington. And now, of course, we'll spend plenty of time talking about what that means, what it means running a tree-free paper products company. The one fun fact, ooh, you caught me off guard on that one. Um, I don't know. I'm a pretty boring person.
Well, I'm looking at you right now, and your hair is the opposite of boring. Maybe your fun fact is your long hair.
Yeah, I've been growing this for actually. Okay, that's. Thank you for teeing that up for me. So for this, I started growing this when we started Cloud Paper. So it was kind of like when I left a salaried corporate job into a startup. It was kind of the symbolism of kind of letting the hair grow. There's no rules anymore. I'm out of the corporate environment, so I just let it go, and here it is. So if the video is being uploaded, we'll have video proof of 3 years of growth on that.
Well, you were on the show today to defend bamboo. And I wanted to have this conversation with you because, as you alluded to, Cloud Paper is a company that makes products made from bamboo. Let's set the stage by talking about bamboo. I think we all know what it is, but what qualities does bamboo have that makes it a wonderful tree alternative?
Number one, it is technically it's a grass. It is one of, if not the fastest growing plant in the world. Some species of bamboo will actually grow up to 3 feet a day. And so, it needs a lot of fuel to fuel that growth. And so it absorbs a massive amount of carbon. Some species can be 3 to 4 times the amount of carbon absorption than an equivalent tree. So, fast growing, great carbon sink. In terms of the properties, so you've seen bamboo. So we're in the paper space, right? But it's used a ton. And I think we'll probably spend some time talking about all that. It's used as a building material, construction material. When you're using it for applications like that, bamboo has a tensile strength greater than steel, but is also incredibly flexible and looks very nice. Has like a nice aesthetic appeal to it as well. So it can be used as a very solid construction material while kind of maintain all of its sustainability benefits. On the paper and tissue side, it has fiber properties, longer fibers, similar to trees, where so you can actually make a soft, high quality absorbent paper towels, toilet paper, facial tissue out of bamboo. Compared to what historically the sustainable option in paper has been a recycled paper, and we can talk much more about that. But recycled generally is a lower quality product because you're dealing with shorter fibers. It's a very intensive process to kind of repulp and recycle things like receipt paper, for example. And so your end product is never a high quality soft product. Where bamboo, you can actually make a very high quality tissue product. One of the biggest differences in terms of sustainability, especially compared to when we're talking paper, instead of using trees, we want to use bamboo, is it actually doesn't. You don't need to replant bamboo after a harvest, right? And so everyone has seen the photos, satellite images or whatnot of acres of land after they get done logging it, right? Just completely decimate the land, completely clear cut and deforest the land. Bamboo actually just continues to grow. So it's much more like a grass, like mowing your grass or cutting your hair. You're not actually disturbing the root system. You're not disturbing the foundation. And it regrows and can regrow if maintained responsibly for up to 50 years on an annual harvest. And so that's what really makes it a really interesting plant, especially for a single-use product like a paper towel. We want to find the most sustainable kind of input possible if we're going to pulp it and make a paper product out of it.
Let's talk though about the cultivation of bamboo. With the rise in demand, bamboo, I was going to say farms, but I believe the correct term is bamboo plantations have popped up all over, especially Asia. And the downfalls that are documented with the rise in demand and the popping up of bamboo plantations include soil erosion, biodiversity loss, and the big one is cutting down standing forests to make room for all this bamboo. Given all that, how can bamboo actually, on the large scale, be a preferred alternative to trees?
Mhm. Mhm. Yep. And again, a fair set of questions there. And I think this is where we rely on, and I think where there's a heavy reliance kind of generally on third party organizations that monitor these type of activities that you outlined. So the big one in our space is FSC, the Forest Stewardship Council. We were one of the first U.S. bamboo paper brands to be fully FSC certified. And what that means is essentially, so the FSC's intended goal and scope is to avoid everything you just outlined. And so what they do, if someone is FSC certified, essentially what the FSC is certified as your chain of custody, your supply chain has met their standards around farming and harvesting and production that encourages biodiversity, encourages healthy, sustainable growing, and doesn't destroy existing biodiversity for new plantations, whatnot. And so, because especially with bamboo, like you said, it's very much grown in Asia because it's very much a global fiber and a global supply chain. That's why it's so important to work with organizations that are highly regarded. And FSC, by and far is the kind of highest standard, the most kind of recognized, the most trusted organization to ensure that when you're buying a product and you see that FSC logo, that you can feel comfortable that no corners were cut, and that the product was produced as sustainably as possible. And so that's number one. Number two, kind of back to your earlier question about just kind of the inherent properties of bamboo. Bamboo is a very low maintenance plant. It grows the best in tropical, subtropical regions, but it can withstand quite a bit. It has a very kind of robust, complex root system, and so there's additional research that points to in areas that may have areas that may have been degraded due to forest fires, unsustainable or illegal logging and harvesting and whatnot, where you basically deplete land and nothing else will grow there. Bamboo's been used as kind of a kickstart to bring back some biodiversity into a region where otherwise there wouldn't be another alternative. And so you've actually seen, like you said, with the growth in demand in bamboo, on the supply side, you've actually seen a lot of bamboo start to grow and be planted and use, one, to bring back biodiversity, and then two, to kind of meet that demand in areas that otherwise would have been essentially left high and dry.
I know that the FSC certification is a robust certification, third party certification. And if you see it on something, that means something. But I also know there are different levels to this certification. Can you briefly explain the different levels and which one or which ones perhaps listeners should be looking for?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and that's a really great call out. And so there's kind of two main tiers to look for. The first tier is called FSC mixed, and there's different subsets where we would say, the FSC has certified that some percentage of this end product was certified and essentially approved by the FSC, right? So you're not at 100% yet, but it's better than zero essentially. And then you have what's called FSC 100. And so that's, as the name might suggest, it's kind of your gold standard. What that means is the FSC says we've gone through the entire supply chain and confirmed that the production, the harvesting, whatnot, from end to end has kind of met our standards for FSC. So that's definitely the one to look for, because the logo is very recognizable, right? And so you can kind of see it like, oh, it's FSC, but in the fine print underneath, that's where you'll either say FSC 100 or it'll say FSC mixed in there. So it's definitely FSC 100 is what you want to look for.
Whenever I personally seek to determine whether any product, not just bamboo products, whenever I think about any product, whether it's actually eco friendly or sustainable or whether it's greenwashed, one of the first questions that I ask myself is where are the where are the materials sourced from? I know that Asia, China in particular, has the vast majority of bamboo plantations. Are there any in the United States?
You're seeing it more recently, I would say. When we got started when we technically got started 3 years ago, but research and kind of warming things up a bit, call it a year before that. At that time, no one was talking about bamboo paper. No one was really talking about bamboo paper being produced in the U.S. or in North America. Um, so at the time, definitely not. You are seeing it, I would say, more so now. And cloud paper has certainly been eager for some of that transition. We're definitely been involved in some of those conversations, and we're very much aligned and excited about the potential to move more of kind of bamboo production, or really non-tree based fiber production, in the U.S. And this is one of these things where it's just been such the status quo for so long, right? Depending on your definition of kind of invented or introduced, toilet paper has about 100-year history in the U.S., 100 to 150 years, and not much has really changed in that time. Really, what we ended up with 100 years later is some catchy marketing radio jingles, some new logos and packaging and brand evolution. But in terms of sustainability and production, not a lot has changed. We're still cutting down trees at an enormous rate to make toilet paper and paper towels. And there just hasn't been the pressure from companies like ours or others to kind of push the industry in the right direction. And so I do think now that cloud paper, and there are a few other brands kind of in this space that are definitely kind of more of the startup brand that have launched in the last 5 years or so. And I think collectively, all of our kind of smaller companies, whether we're bamboo based or recycled or whatnot, are definitely kind of applying that pressure. And I think you'll see some of the US based players start to kind of recognize and make changes. And so we're very hopeful, like I said, and eager to see, in the next hopefully few years, kind of seeing end-to-end bamboo production in the U.S.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear that because as a consumer, not as a podcast host playing bad cop today, but as somebody who buys toilet paper and other bamboo products, it just cognitively doesn't make sense to buy a bamboo based product in which the bamboo is grown and then shipped on the other side of the world. So I'm happy to hear that things might be changing. I mean, bamboo has so many great growing qualities. Why is it not grown here? Well, I know that Cloud Paper specializes in bamboo based paper products, but I have to ask, why is bamboo better than recycled paper made from trees?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, here's the thing. If someone's using recycled, I say great. It's definitely better than using virgin wood pulp. The problem with recycled, and I know we touched on this very briefly. There's kind of two main issues we have. One, recycled a lot of times has an assumption that it's post-consumer waste recycled that we are using and kind of repulping into a toilet paper or a paper towel. What is usually the case, though, is it's industrial waste recycled or pre-consumer waste. And so essentially it's the scraps, it's the leftovers, it's whatnot from the paper making process. And of course, yeah, it should be recycled rather than landfilled or tossed. But the kind of idea perception that we're collecting printer paper and making toilet paper out of it it is part of it. Usually it's like an 80% split of that. It's actually just kind of byproduct of the manufacturing process, and the manufacturing process, which by the way is cutting down trees to make paper out of, which is like that's the root of the problem we want to solve there. The second consideration with recycled is it is not a very nice product. One of the most popular inputs when we are looking at post-consumer waste in terms of recycled paper is receipt paper. And that's where the concern around BPA comes in. If you've seen kind of those questions or concerns, because the thermal printing in receipts that makes its way into the end product. But you can imagine it would be incredibly difficult to turn a piece of receipt paper into a soft, absorbent, comfortable, roll of toilet paper or an absorbent paper towel. And so the quality is just not there. And this is why even now, with all of the attention on climate change and all the attention people are giving into building sustainable habits, recycled paper products make up 2% of the market share. So that means 98% of all paper products that's sold today is still, rolls up to the couple of big brands that are still continuing to cut down trees every single day to make your paper brands that are, on the radio doing their jingles and whatnot. So that's where when we think about recycled, and recycled has been around for a bit now, right? It's not necessarily like a new thing, and I think that there's just a hesitation there, because at the end of the day, if we were talking about driving mass adoption into a more sustainable paper option, quality is going to be a factor for a lot of people, right? It's easy to say you want to make a sustainable switch. But when it comes down to it, most people, there's some line in terms of quality or price or convenience that a lot of people won't cross to make that switch. And recycle, just because it hasn't essentially taken off. And it's our belief that a big portion of that is the quality. And back to our earlier conversation, that's what makes bamboo so interesting, is because you have all these sustainability benefits, especially compared to cutting down trees and old growth forests to make paper. But you can create a high quality, soft product at the end of the day, so that the average consumer doesn't feel like they are making any sort of sacrifice at all, right? And so when we actually think a lot about how do we convince the Cottonelle or the Charmin buyer, how do we convince them to switch to bamboo, right? Versus someone who maybe is already buying recycled and already kind of doing the right thing. And if it's working for them, great. But we want to go and talk to the other 98% of the consumers and get them to stop buying paper products made from virgin wood pulp.
I'm going to answer my own question there and piggyback off of what you said, and say also that the made with recycled content uh, flex, so to speak, on paper products made from trees can often be greenwashing, plain and simple. I mean, you can write made with recycled content and have 1% of the product be recycled, and the other 99% required standing trees to be cut down. So I have made the recommendation on this show before that if you're going to buy a paper product, make sure that it has a high percentage, very high percentage of recycled content in it. Would you agree with that?
Right, and I would say a very high percentage of post-consumer waste, or PCW, they'll say sometimes. But I absolutely agree. I absolutely agree, because again, at the end of the day, we want to kind of shake up that status quo of cutting down trees to run through a manufacturing process, and to us, just again, kind of cleaning up the scraps, so to say, isn't enough for us to kind of drive the industry in the right direction. So if there is, if someone is purchasing recycled, I 100% agree. You want to look for as much of that post-consumer waste content as possible.
Couple more questions for you, Ryan. I am being such a mean person today on the show. I feel bad about it. I hope you don't take it personally. But um, with regard to tree alternatives, I know that hemp looks promising. Do you have any thoughts on hemp as it relates to being at that tree alternative? Where does it compare with regard to bamboo?
We've definitely had the question asked or suggested definitely more than once around leveraging hemp. And I think that there's a couple of things. One is similar to what we were talking about earlier around, the paper industry has been kind of just stuck in their ways. There's been no need or incentive for the existing companies to really innovate at all. And so things like hemp, there's just not an industry there yet, or at the scale that we would need to see for it to make sense. Um, and it is so we haven't looked into it a ton, but we're definitely open to it, especially if the industry is growing, especially around pulping and paper making specifically. We're definitely open to it, and I would say at the end of the day, we want to stop cutting down trees to make paper. Right, we want to end the deforestation caused by the existing paper industry. Bamboo, it was a really great start because there was a kind of, that had its industry was kind of up and running already. So we didn't have to start from scratch. But I don't think bamboo it will be the end all be all for us, right? At the end of the day, we want to be a tree-free paper company. So, if we had plans to launch a hemp product, I would tell you, but we just don't right now. But it's definitely interesting. There's also a lot of innovation happening in things like agricultural byproduct, wheat straw, and whatnot. And so, as much as we can, we want to be a part of those conversations and push in terms of innovation and research in these areas, because there could be room for multiple new fibers, right? Hemp included.
Hmm. I just recently did an episode on late stage capitalism and the absurdities present with late stage capitalism. And as you're speaking, I'm just thinking to myself, how absurd is it that even though we know all of the benefits of trees, we continue to cut them down so we can have a pleasurable wiping experience? That is just completely absurd. Now, back to cloud paper. As I'm talking to you, I'm counting on my fingers how many bamboo toilet paper companies that I know of. I have four, not including cloud paper. So I'm such a bad cop today. But tell me, why is cloud paper, or how is cloud paper better than all those other bamboo toilet paper companies that are currently on the market?
Mhm. Yep, and that again, it's one of the questions that come up because and I will say I'm excited to see other brands pop up. I think we're all kind of on the same team. We're all on Team Trees here to kind of shift the industry. With that said, I think we've taken an approach that might be a bit different from others, and it really comes down to number one, kind of taking the sustainability side of this incredibly seriously and always raising the bar. And then number two is kind of designing and building the best possible product for the most amount of people possible. Because at the end of the day, every person that switches to a bamboo product is one less roll or one less package of products made from trees. So on the sustainability front, I know we've gone through a lot of different things that Cloud Paper thinks about in terms of sustainability, and kind of for us, it all kind of comes together in the NRDC produces an annual report called the Issue with Tissue, and to their credit, they've really been kind of a pioneer in driving the research. And exposing the existing kind of paper and pulp industry. And they do a scorecard every year, and they look at things like your level of FSC certification, your fiber input, chemicals used in the manufacturing process, and they have the kind of calculation and they spit out a score. Basically, it's your sustainability score, kind of all things considered, presented by the NRDC. Because bamboo, they traditionally haven't rated bamboo, but because you've seen a few bamboo brands come out in the last couple of years, last year that was their first time doing it. And we got the highest possible marks you could for a bamboo brand. It was us and one other brand kind of got the highest possible rating from the NRDC. And I bring that up too because it's we've talked a lot about the things that we do in terms of sustainability, but for us it's incredibly validating for an organization like the NRDC, who really is such a leader in kind of driving, applying pressure to the existing industry. It's incredibly validating to have them kind of, give us that validation.
Well, Ryan, this was an enlightening conversation. I think you may have convinced me that bamboo is not an eco trend. It is here to stay. And I want to thank you so much for coming on the show. I enjoyed our conversation very much. And more than that, I enjoyed looking at your gorgeous locks for 42 minutes. So
Well, I'm blushing now. I'm blushing now, Stephanie. Thank you. Well, and this was a great conversation.